From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode number 87. Today's show is brought to you by Arc and Memories. My name is Myke Hurley. I am very sleepy, and we'll explain why shortly. And I am very happy to be joined by Federico and Ticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, Myke.
And Stephen Hackett.
Hey, boys. How are y'all?
Yeah, good. So I have just arrived home about 2 hours ago from Atlanta.
How's that feeling?
I feel like I'm still in Atlanta, but like there's part of me that's here as well. It's I feel very peculiar right now. I'm drinking juices and waters, but I kind of feel like I'm very, very disorientated right now. So we'll see how that goes.
You fly a lot, Myke. Do you usually kiss the ground when you land back in the UK?
No, I think only the Pope does that.
Well, okay.
Okay.
I thought it was a usual gesture. Anyway.
Not for me, man. Not for me. I'm used to flying now. Like I have that whole thing like down, but I just don't think there's anything you can do to prepare yourself for a time change like this. You know, at least Eastern time is way easier to recover from than Pacific time. But I was in Atlanta for the Pen Addict episode 200.
Nice. How did it go?
It was fantastic. It was very emotional. It was very exciting to have a bunch of people together, and we recorded the show in front of a live audience. And I would recommend people, if they've never listened to the show before, just go listen to this because it's fun to hear. And maybe, you know, and we're going to talk about something in a little bit which makes this even more fun to listen to. But Stephen came down too with his brother, and they recorded a video for our Kickstarter backers. And Stephen wrote a really great post about the setup that he used as well. We're into follow-up now, by the way.
Yeah, we sort of eased our way into it.
Yeah, I think I stumbled into it.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. The Pen Show is always fun, and it's great for me at least. And I've said this before at the places, but it's always interesting to see like a parallel nerdy universe. There's so many things that sort of describe and define like the Apple community. Like those traits are true in a bunch of other places, including the Pen community. It's just the best group of people. We talked to lots of people all weekend about the shows and what we're doing, and it's just nice to get out and see people and talk to people. And it was a lot of fun. So thank you to everyone who came out and saw the show. I'm glad it all worked. There's some stress around that, but it was a lot of fun, and it's always good to do something new and exciting. So
I wonder how hanging out with Steven's brother is like. In my mind, it's like hanging out with a non-Mac version of Steven. Is that what it's like?
That's basically right.
They're very similar. Like they look the same, they talk the same. They're very similar. Both very lovely people.
One just doesn't collect old Macs.
Exactly.
That sounds amazing.
We also have some very serious corrections that we need to make from last week's show. There's a couple of very important things that many people let us know about. So we were laughing about ananas. Right?
No, ananas.
All right, ananas. Okay. So, yeah, I guess pronunciation's important. We were laughing about that word, and it turns out that pineapples are called ananas. Basically everywhere else except in English. It's like every other language has some kind of variation on ananas, except for English, which is hilarious. That we were just like, ha ha ha, how silly that sounds. It's like bananas. Well,
turns out
World was right, Myke was wrong.
No, see, in this instance, you got the fruit wrong, Myke.
Yep,
it's true. We also need to correct the pronunciation of the first color iMac. Thank you to the entire nation of Australia for writing me to tell me that it is Bondi.
I have learned in the last few days that Bondi Beach is clearly very important to Australians. Like, it's obviously something of quite like national importance for them. So I would like to issue an official apology on behalf of Connected for calling it Bondi.
And really the British Kingdom, just the whole.
Yeah. So
I-
just
Sorry
like
about the...
just like Johnny Depp apologized to the nation of Australia, we are officially apologizing to the people of Australia for getting the Bondi Beach wrong.
Yeah,
We're
Bondi
sorry.
Beach. And we will try our utmost to never get that wrong again because we don't want those tweets again.
That is true.
Sorry, everyone.
While we're apologizing, Federico, you are ruining someone's marriage, apparently.
What? Am I really?
I guess it depends on how it turns out. Did you see this tweet? So, John Downing on Twitter let us know that his wife and he are having a little bet between them about Federico getting a smaller iPad Pro at Myke's suggestion. And John thinks that you can hold on. I think his wife thinks that you're going to end up with a second iPad.
Okay, because I read the tweet wrong initially. I read that as well, having a little bet on Federico getting a baby. I didn't see Baby Pro. That was kind of creepy.
That's a very different kind of bet.
That's a very different kind of bet, and I couldn't imagine how I was ruining their marriage with that. But I no, I'm still not getting the Baby Pro, and I got a bunch of tweets from people last weekend when I tweeted a picture of my old iPad Air 2 that I was setting up as a camera, and people were like, "So you're gonna switch to the dual iPad setup?" No, it's just a camera. It's my old iPad Air 2. It's sitting on a shelf unused. So I thought, I'm paying for a ManyThing subscription, which is this service that lets you monitor your house with iOS devices. And I set up the iPad Air as a camera. So that's about it, still using a single iPad Pro. So we have about 5 months and a half at this point. So we'll see. Myke has a whole flight to convince me.
Yeah. I'll take your iPad away and just replace it with mine.
Yeah, and I
See
won't
how you
notice.
do.
Sure.
So for many reasons, it's a big week this week. One of them is we have a new show on Relay FM called Disruption. Disruption is the next evolution of Isometric, which was a show that we have had on Relay FM for a while about video games, hosted by Brianna and Steve and Micah and Georgia. But now they've wanted to kind of take the show in a new direction. They want a fresh look and a new format. So we have Disruption, which has a great kind of new attitude to it. I love the music. The music is the most epic of all music. And Disruption now, as well as kind of video games, also focuses on technology and culture. And they also have a really interesting call-in element. So like many shows on Relay FM, they have a hashtag for sending in questions and comments over Twitter. But they've also set up a phone number that you can call and leave a question for the hosts, and you can kind of have fun with that. So that's something really different, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. Disruption is as fun and wild as you would expect from this group, and you can check it out over at relay.fm/disruption. Even if you just tune in to listen to Micah's disclaimer at the start, he has potentially the best voice in the world, so you should at least just listen for that.
Yeah, and it's probably the craziest show on Relay. So it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
So go check it out. That's at relay.fm/disruption. And continuing the theme, Federico, you have something that you're working on this week that you can't yet talk about, but for people that listen before the 20th, right? You want to kind of just tease that you're working on something.
Yeah, for the past couple of months, we've been working, me and another person who shall not be named yet, we've been working on this big project. That's something I've never done before, and it's finally done. And it seems like all the stars are aligned. We're going live tomorrow. There's going to be a video involved, and I'm really excited. I'm really nervous and stressed. I'm at the point where, and I was just talking about this on our Telegram channel a few minutes ago. I'm at the point where I no longer know if what I've done is good or sucks, or it's terrible, or it's amazing. I think it's good work. I've shown it to a few friends, and the feedback seems to be positive. But at that point, you're just gonna go live and see what happens. And in addition to that, which is gonna be a video, there's going to be an article. We're also working on this site feature for Mac Stories. It's a new feature. It's gonna be quite nice, and it's just a way to celebrate Mac Stories, which turns 7 tomorrow. So it's our anniversary, and I always like to do these little surprises or new features, new articles for our anniversary. It's like a nice way to celebrate the occasion. So definitely check it out on Mac Stories tomorrow. Fingers crossed, everything goes smoothly.
In China, 7 is a lucky number.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so this is going to be your lucky year.
nice. It's also the number of books in the Harry Potter series. So
Well,
I like that.
of equal importance, I guess.
Yeah, it's a magic number. It's a magic number. We'll see.
This week's episode is brought to you by Arc. We all know that offsite backups are a fantastically important part of having a well-rounded backup strategy. But if you want to have as much control over this process as possible, then you need to have Arc in your life, because what it does is that, it will allow you to do exactly what you want. It will allow you to back up all your files on your Mac or PC, all the metadata. It will encrypt them with a password that only you know. Your files will be safe and secure with Arc. But what it does that's very different, and I think really cool, is it takes advantage of all of the cloud storage accounts that you have and all the free space that you have over them. So you can keep control of your data and use all that unused space. So maybe in your Google Drive, Dropbox, or OneDrive account, you can use those to set up your own encrypted backups of what lives on your machine. You could also back up to AWS or a Google Cloud Storage account as well. You can also back up data to a local device using Arc, like a NAS, and these backups are all versioned, so you can go back in time and grab a file that's changed or has been deleted with ease. Version 5 of Arc was out, I think last week it was, and it features a massive overhaul for the app to make it faster than ever. You have more control of your network usage, detailed backup session logging. When I talk about that network usage stuff, it will now know if you're tethered to your phone, and it can prevent backups from occurring there so you don't blow through a data cap. You get detailed email reports so you know what's being backed up. You can run scripts before and after a backup to trigger something fun to happen. I don't know, maybe you could somehow trigger like a confetti cannon or something. Could you do that, maybe? Is that possible, Stephen, do you think? Like if you really knew what you were doing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
But
great.
you need to be some sort of wizard.
I'm sure someone could do it. It also features auto-updating and a whole host of other small improvements. Visit arcbackup.com/connected. That's arcbackup.com/connected. And you can find out more and try it for free. Thank you so much to Arc for their support of this show. So Siri went rogue yesterday.
Yeah, this is a strange story, right? So yesterday, midday, 9 to 5, broke the story that if you asked Siri when WWDC was happening, it would tell you. And so a bunch of people took that as sort of official word and bought plane tickets, etc., including the three of us. And then it wasn't until like 6 hours later or so, Apple finally got the developer page updated. And I mean, who knows what happened? Either the Siri team jumped the gun, or maybe the developer page wasn't ready, or the web team had some issues. They're having some more issues today, it looks like, which we'll get to in a second. So either way, it's just not like an awesome way to announce your dates, and especially for an event that is so expensive and, coming up really, it's in like 8 weeks now, 7 weeks, and it's not until several days from now that you actually know if you won the lottery. So I think the whole thing happens way too late in the year, and they should announce it earlier, but that's just me. But anyways, I guess the bigger news is that dates have been announced, and I have to say this developer.apple.com page is gorgeous. It's really pretty.
It is. I just want to go back to the Siri thing real quick.
Sure.
Is someone at 9 to 5 Mac just sitting and asking every 5 minutes? Like, how did they know? Like,
it's strange to me because in the morning I saw someone from 9 to 5 Mac tweet a screenshot of the same question, but there was no answer in the morning. And a few hours later, they broke the news. So it seems to me that they knew it was going to happen.
They knew to ask, right?
Yeah. Because in the morning, I was just waiting in my car. I was waiting for my girlfriend, and I saw this tweet with a screenshot, and I thought, why would you ask? And a few hours later, I saw the news, and I was like, maybe they knew. Wouldn't
Yeah,
surprise me because they know everything. So
Yeah, I mean, or you just got to know someone on a team somewhere who can say to you, "Oh, you should be asking." But it seemed like maybe, as Stephen said, like Siri shouldn't have been the way that this was done, and I don't think Apple wanted that to occur. In all honesty,
It's my guess.
it just didn't. The page doesn't really link to that. Like the page, as you say, is beautiful, and it's clearly much more focusing on code, right? Like this is what it's showing here. If the page was covered in Siri elements, then it would look like that they were kind of doing it to be fun, but I don't think that was the case. But Siri was enough to make me go ahead and buy plane tickets. So I was sitting in an airport in Atlanta buying more plane tickets. I called Federico. Federico, why did I call you?
why did you call me?
Mm-hmm.
Because you wanted to do it on the phone because I'm buying tickets with you?
Because you're coming with us.
Yes, I'm
It's
going
your first
to
WWDC.
Yes.
See?
It's
Exciting.
crazy. After 7 years of Mac Stories and 5 years we've known each other, probably 4 or 5, I'm finally going to be there, and you will be my what's the word, my chaperone?
Yeah, yeah. I'll be a chaperone or a Sherpa. I'll just take care of everything for you.
Yeah.
Seems about right.
You're a good friend, Myke.
Hey, I want to look after you. So Federico's coming to London. We're spending the
Yes.
night in London, and then we're flying out to San Francisco together, and we're going to spend a lovely week. And it's going to be very fun, and we're doing something special. We've been planning this for a while, and we're very thankful that the dates turned out to be what we expected. We're doing so. Atlanta was the first ever RelayCon event, and it was practice for this, which is RelayCon San Francisco. And we have hired out an event space, and we have tickets on sale now. They are very limited, and we'll have a link in our show notes for where you can go to find out more and hopefully get yourself a ticket, and you can come join us. We're going to be doing Connected Live, and we're going to have some other guests. Serenity Caldwell and Jason Stone will be joining us as well, and lots of your favorite Relay hosts will be in attendance. And we're going to have an open bar for a few hours so we can do some shows and hang out, and it's going to be amazing, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, like you said, Atlanta's been a practice run, but we have been wanting to do something at WWDC really since we started. And I'm super pumped. It's great to see tickets flying off the shelves, and I'm really excited to be on stage with the two of you and do a show.
I'm probably going to cry.
Yeah.
Want everyone to know. Cried a little bit last week, so I'm going to cry again.
Gonna get emotional?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, should I bring tissues, Myke?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, the good news is there's going to be beverages. If we cry, we can, lift our spirits.
We can replace
afterwards.
the liquids again.
Yes.
There you go.
So let's go back to talking about this WWDC page. What do you think about it, Federico? Like looking at we know the design is beautiful,
Yeah.
but it's it's always fun, I think, to kind of try and read the tea leaves of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What does this design say to you? What do you think Apple are looking at here?
So I usually don't try to be one of those conspiracy theories kind of people, but 3 things stand out to me. The first one is the heavy focus on Swift and programming. I mean, of course, it's a developers conference, but the Swift theme throughout the webpage and all the design, it's different. And the second aspect is the dark theme of the webpage design. And third would be what appears to be a monospace version of the San Francisco font. So right now, Apple has 2 versions of San Francisco, text and display. And this monospace variant, I've never seen that before. And I'm pretty sure it's San Francisco. I've seen a GIF on Twitter from someone who's overlaying the regular San Francisco typeface with this new monospace version. And if I were to come up with a theory myself, I would say 2 things. Maybe 3 actually. New San Francisco font for programmers.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of dark theme, either for iOS or Xcode. And my long shot, Xcode for iPad. That's what I would read if I were to say, this is a conspiracy. I'm probably wrong, but I don't know. It's interesting web page design for sure.
I've been thinking this for a little bit, and we've spoken about it. I would say that I would make a prediction that we could see Xcode for iPad. I think because it could be one of those things that it could be a Swift level surprise, right? Like no one knew it was coming because it was just being worked on internally. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, we're working on it, it will be ready in 6 months, because I can't even imagine how big a project it would need to be, right? Because I'm assuming like if you're going to have Xcode on the iPad, you would also need to be able to compile on the iPad.
That's the question, right? Because when we first heard about it, I think John Gruber and I separately heard the same thing. There was an Xcode prototype of sorts running on an iPad. I heard it was on an iPad Pro. John just heard iPad, and we don't know if it was a full-on Xcode IDE, like the full app. You can build apps, you can write code, or if it's just a playground only kind of I wouldn't say demo, but maybe slimmed down version of Xcode for OS X. That's the big question. Are you going to be able to compile, to write apps, to test apps on an iPad? Is that even going to be possible? Is it going to be iPad Pro only, or just every iPad? It seems to me like a full Xcode replacement, or maybe a full feature version, maybe with just a few features not available on iOS as a starting point, but that you can try apps, you can build apps, you can compile, you can test them live on a device. It seems to me like it would be a big project, and the kind of a reveal, just like when Apple revealed the Swift 2 years ago. I can only imagine the audience, the reaction, what would it be like? But we don't know if, first, we don't know if it's actually happening. I'm positive that the prototype exists. We don't know if it's happening. We don't know if it happens, what kind of Xcode it'll be.
Yeah, because like I can imagine, let's say like you were going to really restrict it, right? I could imagine you would maybe be able to do something on the iPad Pro, the 12.9 inch for iPhone, right? Because you could maybe have a simulator as well, because the resolution's so massive, right? But it would be very interesting to see if they do this, what constraints Apple would put on it. Because it's not going to be able... I'd be very surprised if right now it could do it. Like, there's maybe a way that you could plug two iOS devices together and you run the simulator on another device.
That would be crazy.
Right? Like that, I mean, that could be a way to do it. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to do, but I really do believe they have to do it at some point. Like if Apple are serious about making the iPad a future computing platform, you need to be able to make apps for it on it. Like that's when, I mean, that seems fair, right? That's when like a computer platform has kind of made it, when you can make more on it for it, like make more for it on the device.
Right. It would definitely be a big shift, and it would be interesting to see, like you said, how you do the simulator type stuff. But I think they also have to solve some sort of, sharing, file sharing, code sharing system where you could pick up a project from Xcode on the Mac and bring it over to the iPad and put it back and forth. And so what I think about immediately is the limited way that the file system is visible now on the iPad enough for something like Xcode, where you're dealing with all of your code, but you're also dealing with assets. You're dealing with images and various types of files. And I just wonder if Xcode for iPad, what it would mean for iOS in general. Is some of that stuff going to be more exposed, or are they just going to do it in a weird way within Xcode and not really deal with it elsewhere? So it's a lot of stuff to consider here, but I think I agree with you, Myke, that it is a big milestone in the maturity of a platform, and one that I would imagine that the iPad Pro is powerful enough to run. It's just is now the time or not. But San Francisco being in monospace, again, like Federico, I try not to read those tea leaves too much, but that seems pretty interesting. Change of pace. So guess we'll see.
Most definitely. The keynote State of the Union, the Design Awards, and the Bash are at the Bill Graham Center. This time instead of at Moscone. They're splitting it across both places.
Yeah, so I've got a pair of thoughts about this. I mean, one, the Bill Graham Center is large. It's where Apple did their September event, if you recall. And it could be that they want more people to be able to attend those events, and so this would give them space for more press and for more developers and for more employees, more of everyone. But also, what I wonder is if they're not going to be using that large room at Moscone, then maybe that room will be divided up into more sessions and labs. And so it may be that they get to use more space in Moscone for this as well. And, you know, for a long time, it's like WWDC is it's clearly not big enough. They clearly can't meet the needs of the community. Even going to this lottery system they've been using for a couple years now, they still can't serve everybody. And if this adds some transportation issues to people who are attending, but if it gives them the ability to have more attendees, then I think it's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, and it seems like they're going to provide some kind of travel between the events. I just wonder why they've done it. Right? Is it a scheduling conflict? Do they just want the space?
Yeah, I can't imagine it's a scheduling conflict. My guess is that it's about the number of seats.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I guess especially for the design awards, now that they're doing design awards for 4 platforms, which means all kinds of developers in the same room at once. Whereas I guess with sessions, developers are split. You know, some go to one session about, say, watchOS. Other developers go to iOS and OS 10 sessions. So it's easier to manage, I guess, the different conference rooms. But for these, the keynote and the State of the Union and the Design Awards, where everyone is going to be in the same place at once, maybe they just want some room.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
That could be the case. We'll see. Maybe they wanted to just make sure they could get everyone in, right? Because does it have a bigger? Is it much bigger than Moscone? What the room that they use in Moscone?
I believe it is, but that's where I think that it's more about the extra room at Moscone, where if they don't use that big room, because those rooms can be configured in a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't need it for a big event hall, then maybe they can divide it up. So, either way, it's an interesting detail, but I think it's
it might give them like more space for labs and stuff, like more of them, right? Because they don't have to move all the walls around in Moscone or whatever.
Right. So I think it's a good thing.
Set it and forget it.
Yep.
Anything else in WWDC? I'm excited now.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be an interesting year. With 4 platforms, there's gonna be a lot of stuff to do. Including maybe hardware. It's going to be. I think we're going to be in for another 2-hour keynote. I think it's going to be a long one.
Hopefully, without the Apple Music segment.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just something to mention, because I see a few people they asked me this question, and I'll clear it up. I'm not going to try and get a ticket. None of us are entering the lottery.
Correct.
We just go to be there and be around everyone that's there.
Well, I still don't know.
What, if you're going to enter the lottery for the developer lottery?
I really would like to attend the sessions.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, I know I'm not a developer, but, the iOS 9 review that I did last year, I spent hours going through the session videos.
But you can still go through the videos. You'll still watch the videos.
Yeah, but talking to people in person, it's another, it's different.
Well, I will speak for myself and Stephen then. Not in that regard.
I'm still thinking about it because... I feel like it would be a real benefit to be able to know what's going to change at a technical level, because a lot of people have told me, next year we would like to see even more from your iOS review. We wouldn't mind having something a little more technical in places. And so I've been thinking about it. I've been listening to the readers. They told me there were a few technical sections in my iOS 9 review. And I thought about, cutting those last year. And I actually left them in. And people really responded well to those sections. For example, I took a look at the code for the for example, the API for the shortcut bar in the iPad keyboard, or San Francisco, and I eventually left them in, those more technical sections, and people told me, we wouldn't mind if you went a little more, crazy with the technical aspects, because we found them interesting. So I'm thinking about it for this year. I wouldn't mind having access to, to a proper way of taking notes and talking to people. I'm still considering, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess that's why John Syracuse used to go as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. You guys told me a while ago that John went to the sessions for the same reason, and I mean, those are big shoes to fill. But John has been an inspiration for me. The way that he approached the technical review, the pros aspect, and the technical aspect. And I would like to do something similar in the future. I feel like I've started doing that with iOS 8 and eventually iOS 9, and I would love to do something even deeper this year. I don't know. Again, still thinking about it.
Well, it seems like more of there's a reason. There is no reason for me to do it. Like, I would just be taking somebody's ticket and wasting it if I was to go. Because I wouldn't understand anything that was being said. And I wouldn't be able to do anything with it afterwards.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel, but in my Western reviews, I go watch the videos that are appropriate for what I need to do. I have this ritual every year that on the flight home, I watch the State of the Union. It's if you're a developer, it's sort of the keynote behind the keynote a little bit. It's usually 2 hours long, but it gets into more technical things. Like last year, they said new system font, San Francisco, and in the State of the Union, there's a 15-minute thing about how it works, and then you go even deeper. Then there was a whole, I think, 2 sessions about how it works. So it's sort of the intermediate information. It's always a good watch.
Yeah, the primary problem in my mind is that I kind of feel terrible for if I do get a ticket, there's going to be another developer who doesn't get a ticket, and I'm not a developer, and I feel bad about it. But I also kind of think about those people who email me, after my iOS review, and how useful they found it, and and I feel like maybe if I could be there, I could save the time. I mean, last year I spent 2 weeks just watching the videos at home and talking to developers over email, and to be able to take notes during the event and to talk to people there would save me a lot of time and would allow me to do an even better, more in-depth kind of review in September or October, whenever. So I feel terrible, but maybe it's for the readers and for the technical knowledge, maybe it's worth it. I don't know.
And they are going, as underscore points out in the chat room, they are going to live stream the sessions this year.
Yeah.
But I totally get what you're saying about the ability to go and talk to people. I mean, that is what you're paying for with this. Because I mean, for years and years now, you could have seen session videos. They've gotten better at getting them up quicker, but it's really the labs and just the communicating get to do not only with their developers but with Apple as well. Apple engineers are there. That's something that is unique to WWDC. So I understand where you're coming from, and I guess we can add that to follow up for next week, see if you did it or not. So
yeah, see what happens.
All right, should we take a break?
Yeah.
This week's episode is also brought to you by Memories. And we spoke about this last week, right? We all remember that Everpix flashback feature that we loved so much. We spent so much time talking about that back in the day of our photo management ongoing segment. This was something that many other services have tried to do as well, but when you're putting these your photos up into these cloud services, you're never sure if they're around. But I think one that we can kind of think is going to be around for a long time is Apple's solution, iCloud Photo Library, because it's not pivotal to Apple's business. It's just a part of their overall features. So an app like Memories that allows you to take advantage of your iCloud photo library for these flashbacks is really cool. And this is exactly what it does. It will show you all of your photos that you've taken on the same day as the day you're opening it. So if you open it today, it will show you these are all the photos you've taken on this day in past years. It groups them all together, and you're able to travel back in time and revisit those old memories that you might have not ever thought to look at again. You'll get a notification each day to tell you how many memories you have that day, and you can quickly see them in a lovely Today View widget as well if you just need that quick fix of a stroll down memory lane. You can also very easily use the date picker to go and select a date that's specific if you want to go and find something from a date in the past, which is really cool. So maybe WWDC's coming up, you want to look at your photos from previous WWDCs, you can do that too. Memories makes it easy to then share these photos, and if you come across something that you'd rather forget, it's easy to remove them as well. Check it out right now and learn more at memories.land/connected. That's memories.land, LAND/connected. So just before the show today, Apple threw us some more news, which is nice of them.
Yeah, they know we were recording, so they checked it out.
That's why Tim had to rush his tweet.
Oh God. So let's do the news first, and then we'll make fun of Tim Cook. The 12-inch MacBook, USB-C single port Chroma keyboard laptop got updated today. I think the high points from the technical end is that it's got Skylake Intel Core M processors. Now the clock speed is basically the same. These max out at 1.3 gigahertz, but the Skylake chip is seemingly a lot more power efficient than the previous Core M. And so this thing is supposed to get, what they say, up to 10 hours of battery life. So, all day battery life like the MacBook Air. It also has new Intel HD graphics, which should also be faster and easier on the battery. And they updated the SSD speed. So basically this whole machine should be quicker. It's quicker on the processor front, it's quicker on the GPU front, and it's quicker on the SSD front. And I've got one of these machines in my household, the previous one. And for everyday use, it's not, in my opinion, it's not unusable, but it's definitely slower than, the MacBook Air, especially when you're doing really performant-heavy tasks. So, like, when I installed OS X El Capitan on it, it was unbelievably slow. It took ages. And, of course, that is not only a disk-intensive, but also, obviously, processor-intensive. And so I'm curious to see how much faster this will be. It's hard to tell by just kind of the reading of this, because the Core M, I'm not super familiar with it, and of course it's only used in this product by Apple. But the rest of the machine is the same. It's still a single USB-C port. The people who wanted a second one aren't getting it, apparently. It's still the 480p FaceTime camera. It still includes a headphone jack, and it still does not have Thunderbolt. And my understanding of this is that is a side effect of using the Core M, that the Intel Core M does not support Thunderbolt the way that the full-size processors do. And so this thing is still just USB-C, whereas when they eventually update the MacBook Pro, if they ever do it, Apple, take my money, that those USB-C ports will be compatible with Thunderbolt 3, but that is not true on this machine. So all in all, I think from a tech perspective, it is an update to the machine that we had. It is not a new machine. This is not a radically different take on the MacBook. This is just what we've had improved. And, it's still not for me. I think for people who the MacBook was for yesterday, it is still the machine for them today. I don't think this is going to bring a bunch of people who have been on the fence about this computer into the fold. I still think the limitations that were there yesterday are there today. But I am glad to see Apple moving the ball forward with the performance and the battery life. Rounding out the tech stuff, the MacBook Air is still around. It survived today's updates. Both the 11.6 and 13-inch are still around, same price points. The only difference being the 13-inch now comes with 8 gigs of RAM across the board. Before, you could go to 4 gigabytes of RAM on the entry model. You had to upgrade to 8. That's still true on the 11, but the 13 is all 8 gigs. Just like the MacBook Pros are all 16 gig. That's a welcome improvement, but the MacBook Air still wanders on. As I kind of view the MacBook Air as like you're watching a movie and the character is dead. You know that they're going to die, but the character doesn't know it yet. It's kind of how the MacBook Air feels to me.
Oh,
but it's still here and still around. It is sad. I like the MacBook Air, and I understand, like some people on Twitter were talking earlier, the MacBook Air still has a place, right? Or Apple wouldn't be selling it. It hits a price point they can't hit with the MacBook. It is a much more all-around notebook where you got Thunderbolt and a couple USB ports, better battery life. And I truly believe this is the machine, the 13-inch Air is what is being sold in the enterprise as far as Macs and education. I mean, this is a very well-rounded computer. In a lot of ways, it's the most well-rounded computer Apple makes. And until the MacBook can close that gap, or the MacBook Pro gets updated and comes down in size and weight, I think the Air's place is safe for now, but I do think its days are probably numbered.
I didn't think that it would exist past WWDC. In all honesty, I thought that the Air was over, that the MacBook would be taking over. But that's clearly not the case, right? Because they wouldn't update it now if they're going to kill it in 2 months' time.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, and I think the update says something. You know, we've seen this in the past where Apple kind of does the update, but not really an update, and then it sits. So it may be that the MacBook Air is sliding into Mac Mini territory, where for a long time the Mac Mini just sat and got very minor updates very infrequently, and just sort of held the line. And you know, I think I would feel differently if the MacBook Air got Skylake today. It may be that once they update the MacBook Pro with Skylake, that the MacBook Air comes along for the ride. The chips used in the Air and the Pro are much more similar than those in the Air and the MacBook. So I don't know. Maybe there's another shoe to drop here, but my sense is that the MacBook Air is on its way to pasture.
So the new MacBook, the what it's been updated with, like the Intel Core M and stuff, where does this put it? Can you kind of like give me an idea as to what this thing could potentially be like now? Because I know it's been sluggish, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not super familiar with this line. My guess is that it's going to feel more like the MacBook Air of maybe just a couple of years ago. You know, a lot of people equate the old MacBook to like a 2010, 2011 MacBook Air. That's about where it benchmarked. And so maybe this will move it into like 2012, 2013 MacBook Air sort of placement. I mean, my guess is that it's going to feel a lot better in day-to-day use. But I really, it's hard to tell. I mean, this is sort of just, at least for me, a little bit of an unknown processor. But I would hope that it's a big jump. I don't think it's going to be like the first gen MacBook Air to the second, you know, where they redesigned it. I don't think it's going to be that. But I do think that it will probably be noticeable for most people.
Okay. And, I mean, an additional hour of battery life is good, right? Always nice to have more battery life. But what's it missing?
I mean, I think Thunderbolt is a big deal for people like us. I don't think normal people, like my wife has never complained that she doesn't have Thunderbolt on her laptop, right? I do think the most limiting thing about the MacBook is still the single port. And clearly that's a line that Apple's going to hold, right? If they're going to do it, now would be the time to do it. And I think that's really just a matter of getting used to it, you know, of buying the adapters if you need them, buying a USB-C to Lightning cable, like we spoke about a couple weeks ago. And for me, when I look at the MacBook, that's really the reason I don't really consider it. I don't love the keyboard, but I could get used to it. I love the screen on it. I mean, I love using my wife's computer. The screen is unbelievable. But for me, it's that I still have to plug a lot of stuff into my computers, and the single USB-C port wouldn't really cut it for me. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's a machine with a bunch of interesting compromises, and I think depending on what's important to you, there are different reasons why it may or may not work.
So what did Tim do?
So Tim tweeted as he does, and his first tweet, he mistyped the MacBook URL. I don't know why he didn't copy and paste it, and it 404'd, and that's sad. He tweeted again, and now the store page 404's, not because of his tweet, but like the Apple website is broken at this moment at 10 a.m. on the 19th. I'm sure it'll be fixed by the time you hear this. You know, Apple used to put the sticky note and say the store will be back, and they've gotten rid of that. And maybe they didn't need to get rid of it because obviously they're struggling today to get it right. It's just sort of a little bit of a ham-fisted launch, but I'm sure it will all be sorted out in due time, hopefully.
And I mean, Federico, you tweeted about
Myke.
this, and you said that you would get one of these, maybe.
If my main problem, the only reason why I'm talking to you on a MacBook right now, is that I cannot record podcasts on an iPad. So if the situation doesn't improve this year with iOS 10, I really feel like my MacBook Air is dying, and we've been observing its slow, painful death for a few months now, and it's only getting worse. The keyboard is basically going to die within a couple of months, I think. So if at WWDC I don't see any audio API announcements, I feel like I should buy one of these MacBooks, if only because it means I will need a Mac until next year, and that means that this MacBook Air is not gonna make it, and I might as well just buy a MacBook with these new processors and with more battery life right now, rather than ending up one day with a dead MacBook Air and I have to text you guys and say I cannot do the show today. So I'll see what happens at WWDC. If there's no solution for podcasting on iOS the way that I like it, I know that there's workarounds, etc. But if there's no changes, I'm gonna get one of these MacBooks because I have to, not because I want to, because I have to. Yeah.
I mean, I think for someone to like you who's not using a Mac for very much anymore, I mean, it's a great machine. And when you do need to travel with it, obviously, it's like the thinnest and lightest thing you can get. So I think it makes sense to me. You can get the adapter and plug in your interface and plug in power, and you'll be all set. So. Yeah,
and I already got the power with the 29-watt adapter. So
yeah, buddy,
rolling. It's basically an iPad. I said, like, I'm interested in trying to get something thinner and lighter for when I travel. I'm gonna wait though. And see what the MacBook Pros look like before I consider this at all, But even then, I'm not set on whether I would do it. But it's just because I use it so infrequently that it annoys me that it's so much heavier and thicker than my Mac. My Mac is so much thicker and heavier than my iPad, and I have to put them both in my bag if I want to edit in Logic.
Right.
But I want to see what the MacBook Pros look like before I consider anything, because if you can still get something really powerful and it's thinner and lighter than what the current one is, which you'd assume, then that's going to be an upgrade for me no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of looking at it from your perspective. I would think if you're on the fence, at least wait till the Pro eventually is announced.
Yep. So we'll see. Did we want to touch on this strange story that came out from Bloomberg?
Yeah, sure.
Federico, could you sum this up? Like, what's going on here?
Last week, Bloomberg posted this story on a team of people within Apple, a couple of, I think 100 people maybe. Not clear if it's people from the iAd team or some kind of mixed team with old members and new members. Anyway, there's a team within Apple exploring the idea of having paid search results on the App Store. So there's no details of how it would work, but the basic idea is developers will have a way to buy spots in search results, similarly to how they can buy results on Google search. I assume, this is totally my assumption, you can define an amount of money that you can pay, and then your app will show up for some keyword results or relevancy. We don't know. And this report from Bloomberg, basically the people who observe Apple and the App Store went crazy on tech blogs and Twitter. And the main cause of concern here is that the App Store search is in need of so many improvements, and none of those is a new paid advertisement business model.
Yeah.
And I think John Gruber summed it up quite nicely. App Store search needs to work better. It doesn't need, paid search results. And it's so odd to me, this story, this possible idea. The story, I would be curious to know how it came about, because my feeling is someone within Apple got a hold of this idea. They really didn't like it, and they leaked it to a publication. So they went to Bloomberg and they were like, what's going on within Apple? It's this thing, and because they knew that people would react badly to this rumor. But I also wonder, is this really something Apple is considering? Because it's so un-Apple. It sounds so not like Apple to me. We know how iAd kind of failed for many developers. We know that Apple is not an ad company. Apple is not Google in that regard. And the App Store needs so many technical improvements. We're not talking here about conceptual ideas or, principles. We're talking about technical problems that Apple needs to fix, especially with App Store search. And to have this kind of non-feature, paid search results, which only benefits Apple to generate revenue of advertisements in search on the App Store, it's really strange. It sounds really, really not Apple-like to me.
I can see the path to how it could have occurred, right? Like the idea of the iAd team was disbanded to do this because there's a kind of an overlap. And then you can see the path of like someone who thinks that this is wrong would then kind of try and leak it to try and get it kiboshed or whatever.
Yeah. Well, internal sabotage.
Yeah, and I can't wrap my head around what I think about this because it seems like a way to kind of put a Band-Aid over a bigger problem. Right? Like, they're just kind of like, well, we know it sucks, the search sucks, but there's kind of nothing they think we can, there's nothing we can do about it. What are we going to do about it? So they're kind of just like, well, we could have people pay, and I feel like it's, I can see how they might have got there. I think it's a terrible idea, but I can, I can kind of like see how you end up in this, in this thinking.
I don't know. I mean, I can see how someone from the iAd team is really upset that they're no longer doing iAds. And now they're like, what should we do next? Let's do App Store paid search results. Like, I can imagine how that team must feel like. And it's not fun, to have your team disbanded and not work on anything. So I can relate to that feeling of finding what's next. But from an outsider point of view, from a user's point of view, really, I feel like it's a terrible idea. I mean, if App Store search were amazing, right? If it worked correctly every time, if there were no issues with caching or with apps that don't show up or with results that are not relevant, if App Store search was incredible, I could see Apple saying, well, maybe we should monetize that in some way. But the fact is that App Store search is really possibly one of the worst aspects, probably top 5 worst aspects of the App Store. So having that, now be sort of cluttered with ads and with paid results, I feel like it's really not not a good time. Fix whatever is wrong with App Store search before, and then maybe we can talk about monetizing App Store search. Because right now, I mean, it's already bad, and I feel like people would feel even worse about it if it were, cluttered with search results nobody's asking for.
What if this comes along with bigger changes? Like, what if this is part of like a massive overhaul, and could it make sense there, right? Like, let's say they really of make huge changes. Would it then work?
I mean, we're talking here about a lot of changes, right? Especially when a developer releases a new app and you cannot find that app in the App Store. That's a big problem. And the fact that you cannot filter results by relevancy or release date, or there's all kinds of improvements that you can make to the App Store and to App Store search. But let's play devil's advocate here. And let's say that Apple is working on a major change to the App Store and a major new look for App Store search. Would it be beneficial to allow developers to have paid search results? I could argue that maybe if Apple were really strict about it, there could be some kind of like more analytics that they could offer to developers to monitor the performance of search, how their apps are discovered. There could be maybe an improvements to App Store analytics. But maybe there could also be some kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe some kind of way to make sure that, scammers or, spammy developers don't show up with their paid search results for apps that are really not relevant and for, search queries that are really not relevant to their product. And it could maybe even be beneficial to, small to medium teams and indie developers to spend a little amount of money and to have their indie app show up in search results, maybe next to the big time folks. For example, I can imagine, I don't know, you search on the App Store for word processor, and instead of having the top search results only for Pages and Word and some other scammy developer, you also have a very fine, very indie crafted word processor from an indie developer who spent a couple of $100 on App Store paid search results. That could be the upside in an optimistic scenario, I guess. The problem is, first, I don't really have a lot of trust in Apple's iAd, performance, and I want to say, I still struggle to see iAd as a real Apple feature, real Apple product. Always felt kind of wrong to me. But let's say that it's perfect, and that's where the conceptual part of me comes into play. I really don't feel. I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I guess I've always in my idealistic scenario, I see the App Store as a playing field open to everyone, and to allow the highest bidder to show up in paid search results to the detriment of an indie developer. It doesn't sound nice to me, but maybe there's a good way to go about it. Maybe there's a right way to implement this. I don't know.
Because what I'm just wondering is, like, if you assume there is a world in which they fix every single problem that exists in the App Store, is this an okay thing to do? That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. Because, like, I think the argument that everybody's posing right now is just, like, you shouldn't do this when you've still got tons of bugs and weird features of the App Store. But, like, is that the reason? I don't think that's the reason. I think it just feels weird to have people pay. Because you mentioned, like, an indie app paid an amount of money. If you're in a big category, you won't be able to afford it. Because if it works anything like the way that Google would work, it's bidding. And, if you're making a word processor, you're never going to outbid Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean that's the inherent problem with Google AdWords, and for me, it's what offsets that is that with AdWords, those results are placed next to organic search, and that would be fine if the organic search in the App Store worked, but it just is terrible. So I agree with you guys.
So that's what I'm thinking, right? Because if it works, if everything's fine, I mean, I care about it as much as I care about paid ads in Google, which is not that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be part of a bigger scheme, right? It can't be this is the only thing going on, or it just doesn't work. But there's the part of me too that just wonders, like, could Apple pull this off? Like, this is really new territory for them, and unless they're bringing people on from someplace like Google, they're not going to have the knowledge base that Google has acquired over the years of how this works, how it can be scammed, different ways people try to cut corners. And so I think if they do it, they've got to do it really well, and it's got to be part of a bigger change. But I think if those things are true, then this article is just a part of the story, like you said.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities that Apple could explore. For example, they could use their own algorithm to monitor what people search for, and if they discovered that you search for a particular product, they could use the system to recommend an app to you that's being also paid for. And I mean, if it keeps Google afloat, the search business, the paid search business and the ads, there's obviously money to be made from paid search results done somewhat right. And the key aspect seems to be that those results would have to be clearly indicated that they're paid search results. They're not, traditional search results, and they would have to be accurate. I mean, if I search on the App Store for, let's say, Markdown, I don't want to end up with a paid result from some Flappy Bird clone that paid money to have a Markdown tag in their search keywords. So they would have to be done right. And maybe if I were to be positive about it, I could see, having developers pay a certain fee and have their apps magically show up for people even when people were not exactly looking for them.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess part of me is excited that at least this is in the news, that something is going on, that people are paying attention. Schiller hasn't been over this very long, so part of me thinks like, were these changes underway, or is he just really hit the ground running with this stuff? Since it's been 2 months since they announced that change. But either way, I think that just that someone is paying attention to the App Store is good, right? Like it just has sat for so long without any changes. And I for now at least I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that under this new leadership they could maybe make some improvements. But I agree with you guys. There's lots of potential traps here they could fall into. So
it would be really interesting if Apple were to decide to do this, but with some caveats, such as, for example, you can only pay for showing up in search only if your app has been updated for the latest version of iOS and for the latest devices. So in a way that, maybe a developer that made a crappy app 2 years ago isn't able to just, put in their credit card into the Apple webpage and say, I want to pay for this terrible app to show up. Like there will be, I imagine, some kind of rules that you have to follow, and having technical rules such as you have to support iOS 10 or you have to support all of the latest Retina devices. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the whole thing's just interesting to think about, because for so long, at least I felt that the App Store it's kind of like a fixed thing, like it is what it is, and it's been that way for a long time. And that's maybe that's changing.
Do you think the 30% will ever change? I know infinite timescale, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Should it change? That's a question. Maybe.
I guess it depends, right? Like, if Apple start to do more, like if they start to make things better, then it probably shouldn't change, because you're paying it and you hate it, right? Like so many developers hate so much about the App Store. If they fix a bunch of those things, it makes the 30% easier to stomach, right? Because you're already paying it anyway. If they give you more and it gets better, then it makes it worth paying it.
I guess the problem here would be, let's say that Apple cuts the fee to 15%. Maybe that would be a huge difference for an indie developer, to go from 30% to 15%. But would Apple prefer to be more helpful for those indie developers than to lose 15% of fees from Clash of Clans and the Kardashian games? Which kind of option would they prefer? The money from the big time developers who bring in all the billions every year, or sort of changing the livelihood of smaller studios and developers? I don't know.
There have got to be some changes, right? Like there's going to be something. I'm interested to see if this is something that sneaks in, and if it does, I wonder what is the whole story around it. That's what interests me, because I can see this occurring at some point in the future, and I just wonder how they would go about pitching that.
Well, the good news is, Myke, they have a developer event in 2 months, and there's going to be a whole audience to pitch this to.
That's the stage.
I mean, imagine if they announced this feature and all the developers started yelling bad words at the stage. That would be interesting.
So I think that brings it to the end of this episode, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
We've pretty much sold out of the San Francisco tickets. Yeah, they're nearly all gone. So thank you to everyone that bought them during the show.
I wanted to have a post on Mac Stories after the show.
You can still post about it, but I don't know if
I mean, if there are no tickets, people are going to be upset at me.
There are a handful
linking.
left. You just got to do it quick.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the time because I got to talk to you guys. So, well, thank you, people, for buying the tickets.
I'm really sorry for everybody that missed it. You should, by the way, members found out about this the evening before, so that's why you should be a member of Relay FM. We let members know about this stuff first. So if you were a member, you would have known.
Is it true, Myke, that only members can touch your beard at the show?
We can try and make that happen. We'll send out a beard touching coupon to members.
And
just gave you incredible
and there
idea.
is, I should clarify, there is a wait list on the event. So if it is sold out when you go to it, you can opt into the wait list, and I'm sure things will shuffle around, people finalizing travel plans, and so maybe you'll get in. So I would definitely encourage you to hit that wait list button if that's what you are presented with on the Eventbrite page.
Yeah, you never know what might happen. So put your name in. If you're interested, just put your name in there, and then hopefully we'll be able to get some more tickets out. We'll see. All right, thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. You can find our show notes at relay.fm/connected/87. If you want to find us online, there's a few places you can do that. You can go to macstories.net, which you should be going to this week. Federico's got some great stuff planned. You can also follow Federico on Twitter. He is at Viticci, Viticci. Stephen writes at 512pixels.net, and he is at ISMH on Twitter, and I am at iMyke, IMYKE. Thanks again to Memories and Arc for sponsoring this week's episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.